Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on your time zone. Welcome to my channel. My name is Ogbanje Joseph. Please subscribe to this channel, share, like, as well as drop a comment on the comment section. So, our lecture today is titled The Feasibility of West African Common Currency. The feasibility of West African Common Currency. Now, ECO, which is the proposed name for common currency in West Africa. Okay, that is what the West African Monetary Zone plans to introduce in the framework of Ecowas. After its introduction, the goal is to merge the new currency with the West African CFA francs used in French-speaking member countries in West Africa, okay, since 1945. Now, this will create a common currency for West Africa, okay. Now, the move towards the search for common currency was officially stated in 2000 in connection with the formal launch of West Africa Monetary Zone. ECO was first planned, okay, to be introduced in 2003, but this was postponed several times to 2005, 2010, and 2014. In 2009, it was again rescheduled to 2015 due to international economic crisis. Now, in 2001, okay, the West African Monetary Institute was set up with headquarters in Accra, Ghana. Now, again, the commencement of ECO was still rescheduled in 2015. Okay, sorry, it was actually rescheduled to take place, in 2020. But when the when the interim organization, which is West African Monetary Institute, was actually put together, it was put together in preparation for the future West African Central Bank. Thus, the West African Monetary Institute, is to provide a framework for a central, for what? For a central, for a central bank in the West African Monetary Zone to start the integration and begin preliminary preparations, for the printing and minting of physical money, just like European Monetary Institute did before the introduction of euro. Now, what are the criteria for, achieving West African monetary currency? What are the criteria? Now, for the ECO to be implemented, 10 convergence criteria was actually set out by the West African Monetary Institute, which must be met. Okay, now this 10 convergence, okay, we have this 10 convergence criteria. Now there are, the criteria was actually divided into 4 primary and 6 secondary criteria. What are the primary criteria? Number 1, single digit inflation rate at the end of each year. Number 2, a fiscal deficit of not more than 4% of the GDP. Number 3, a central bank deficit financing of not more than 10% of the previous year's tax revenues. Number 4, gross external reserves that can give import cover for a minimum of 3 months. Those are the 4 primary, convergence criteria. Then we also have, 6 secondary convergence criteria. What are the 6? Number 1, prohibition of new domestic default payments and liquidation of existing ones. Number 2, tax revenue should be equal to or greater than 20% of the GDP. Number 3, a stable real exchange rate. Number 4, a positive real interest rate. Number 5, wage bill to tax revenue equal to or less than 35%. Then number 6, public investment to tax revenue equal to or greater than 20%. Now, it is sad to note that up to the fiscal year of 2011, 2012, even 20 till now, only Ghana has been able to meet all the primary criteria in any single fiscal year. Now, what are the challenges? What are the problems of the search for West African monetary currency? What are the problems of the search for West African common currency? What are the problems? Number 1, low intra-trade among member countries of Ecowas. Now, there is minimal amount of intra-West African trade that takes place, within the West African sub-region. Now, to worsen the situation, West African economies are deeply penetrated by those of France, Britain, and other ex-colonial powers, and increasingly by the US and Japan, whose transnational corporations are moving in, to exploit and extract resources. Number 2, fear of domination. Don't forget that in any regional integration, there are always, small and large, rich and poor countries. Now, the smaller and weaker countries, actually are always very skeptical and scared. Scared in the sense that, of course, they are scared of the powerful countries that they are going to be overshadowed. Number 3, we have loss of revenue. The fear of loss of revenue through the elimination of the intra-regional tariffs, which will make the weak members not to be in the position to raise tariffs, is a greater challenge. This is because these weak member states, these weak member states economies majorly depend on tariffs gotten from the imported manufactured goods. Number 4, uneven distribution of benefits. Of course, there are disparities among developing countries, which create problems in equitable distribution of trade benefits. Now, the weak countries fear that the economically better partner countries will retard rather than assist in their economic development. Then we have number 5, geographical distances. Number 6, political instability and economic as well as religious crisis. Number 7, administrative deficiencies. Number 8, lack of political will to implement such ingeniously articulated program, for economic growth and development. Number 9, link with former colonial masters. Then number 10, fight between the former colonial masters. Now, what are the prospects? Now, let us look at the prospects, of the search for West African monetary currency or common currency. Now, the prospects are, number 1, trade effect. It has been argued that the multiplicity of currencies has often been an impediment to trade expansion within the Ecowas sub-region. Now, a region-wide currency would eliminate these obstacles, because it would minimize the cost of doing business. Number 2, capital market gains. Now, an extension to the gains from financial and commodity convertibility is capital market integration. Now, an effective monetary union could facilitate the establishment of a single capital market or a consolidation of existing national ones into a unified market devoid of restrictions. So number 3, macro policy coordination. Now, the search for Ecowas monetary union has thrown up the imperativeness of macroeconomic policy coordination among West African countries. Now, thus, setting a benchmark indicators which are expected, to guide national economic policies during the transition. Then, of course, number 4, common monetary authority. As it were, a monetary union strengthens the hand of the common monetary authority in the quest for price stability in integrating zone. Okay, now this gives room for single monetary authority in the area. Then number 5, increase in GDP of over $10 billion. Number 6, opportunity of investment, and of course profit, to member countries. Now, what is important is that there are prospects and challenges of achieving Ecowas single common currency, okay, within the Ecowas sub-region. There are prospects and there are also problems. I've actually talked about the prospects as well as the challenges, but what is important is how can the West African countries actually achieve the convergence criteria. I'm talking about the primary convergence criteria as well as the secondary convergence criteria. This is where the major challenge actually lies, because if these countries, particularly the 15 countries in West Africa, are able to actually achieve this primary as well as secondary convergence criteria, then the prospects of having ECOWAS common currency will actually be achieved. Thank you very much.